What's up everybody, this is Vando and you're watching Deadlock School, a channel dedicated to helping you master the game of Deadlock. In this video, I want to take a look at the 3 new items that released with the most recent patch there on November 21st. That's Spellslinger Headshots, Spirit Snatch, and Arcane Surge. And I want to break the video down today and show you who I feel like should be building these items as a core part of their build, who it's a good item for, and who could probably get away with building it, but maybe it's not the best item in their build. Alright, so let's start out by looking at Spellslinger Headshots. So this item, you build it out of Soul Shredder, so you got to get Soul Shredder as a prerequisite. It costs 4250 souls total. It's going to give you 8% Spirit Amp proc, 18% Spirit Lifesteal proc, 12% weapon damage on top of the 14 that you get just for a level 3 weapon item, and then 150 bonus health. And then the passive on this, anytime you land a headshot, it's going to increase your spirit power by 3%. So this item is going to get better later in the game as you start to build up lots of spirit power. So very useful on any hero that's going to build boundless spirit, or any hero where you're going to be, filling up a lot of flex spots with spirit items. Alright, I want to start out by looking at some of the heroes that this is going to be part of their new core, and that's going to be any hero that builds Soul Shredder bullets and boundless spirit. The first hero here is going to be Grey Talon. So if you build this on Grey Talon, you can get quite a bit of spirit. You're going to start hitting for about 7 spirit power per headshot, and that's going to build up a nice arrow and a nice owl here. Next up is Pocket. You might not get a lot of value for this until late game because you don't really build boundless for a while on Pocket, but might as well throw it in towards the end of the game because this is going to ramp up the damage on his combo. Spellslinger is a pretty good mid-game pickup on 7. You build naturally just into a lot of spirit, so he's going to see a lot of value on this. It's not too hard to hit headshots with his gun, and it's going to ramp up the damage on his ball and ultimate. Now Wraith is probably one of the better users of this item. It's just really easy to get headshots with her gun. You have so many bullets in the clip. It's going to absolutely ramp up the damage on your cards and just get you way huge spirit if you play the spirit build. And last we have Yamato, who is also just a really good user of this item. Just one note about her gun is it does not proc on the alternate fire. So you have to use your regular fire to get the headshots for this. Now we'll look at some heroes that Spellslinger is still good for, but maybe not necessarily core to their build. That's because they either don't really build Soul Shredder or Boundless, or maybe their gun is just not really good for headshots. First one here is going to be Bebop. It's pretty good on Bebop if you're going to build his ultimate, but maybe not as much if you're going to play Bomb Pop. Next we have Kelvin. It's a little bit harder to get headshots with Kelvin because he has a small clip and his gun is just a little bit wonky, but it is going to ramp up his spirit damage to give you an absolutely massive ice beam and huge grenades. Geist kind of has the same problem as Kelvin. She's just not really great at hitting headshots, unless you're cracked, but it does give her, quite a bit of spirit. She always builds into spirit pretty well, and it's going to give her just really big grenades as well. After that, we've got Mo and Krill. Pretty easy to get headshots with Mo and Krill, and he builds a lot of spirit. It's just that his gun slots are a little bit more contested, but it's still a good item for him. And then Vindicta is kind of the same problem as Mo and Krill. It's a really good item for her as well, but maybe she doesn't build quite as much spirit, and her gun items are very contested. Finally, here we got Viscous. Viscous can use this item really well, I think. But it's just kind of expensive, and he has a lot of other items he wants to build before he would pick it up, and then also his gun is pretty contested. Okay, now we'll look at I guess some honorable mentions. These heroes, if you build Spellslinger, you're not necessarily griefing, but it's not probably particularly good, just usable for them. That's going to be Infernus. It's going to be all right on Infernus. It's just he has a lot of items he wants to build first, but it is a good late game pickup. Then you got Ivy. If you're playing Spirit Ivy, this could be a really good item for you. Lash, this is also probably a pretty decent item on Lash. I feel like he builds Soul Shredder quite a bit, maybe not necessarily as much Spirit. You've also got Mirage. It's a pretty good item on Mirage as well, just a lot of contested slots for his gun. Then you got Shiv. Shiv could use it okay. It's easy to hit headshots with his gun, and he does build a lot of Spirit. It's just his gun slots are pretty contested. And then finally you got Warden. So not a bad item on Warden, just a little bit more difficult to kind of fit it into his build there. Alright, the next item I want to look at here is Spirit Snatch. So Spirit Snatch is a 3,500 soul item. You got to build Spirit Strike first as a prerequisite. It's going to give 15% melee damage, 125 bonus health, 8% spirit resist, 1 meter per second move speed. You get the native 12 spirit power for being a 3000 soul spirit item. And then the passive on this is whenever you perform a light or melee attack, it's going to hit for 55 spirit damage that scales up. It's going to steal 12% spirit resist and 26 spirit power. So that's a huge swing. So that's a 24% spirit resistance swing and then a 52% spirit power swing. So when you hit somebody, you steal it from them. So this is a really good item, for any hero that gets close enough to hit a melee or that can confirm a melee through one of their skills. All right, now Spirit Snatch is going to be core for anyone that can confirm a heavy melee. So Abrams, of course, can confirm a melee off of his charge attack. It's going to buff up his spirit power and his resist there. Bebop can get a melee off of his uppercut. Obviously a very good item for Bebop. Haze can jump in with her sleep dart and get a melee. It's a good item for her early in lane. Mirage, it's a little bit more difficult to space out the tornado, but he can also confirm a melee attack there. You've got Shiv, who cannot necessarily confirm a melee, but he can very easily hit a light melee. And then finally, we got Viscous, who can confirm off of his Puddle Punch. All these heroes should probably be building Spirit Snatch. All right, now we'll look at some heroes that can use it pretty well. First, we got Ivy, who can confirm a melee, but just a lot of competition in her spirit slots. Kelvin can get a melee pretty easy if you get somebody inside the dome. Obviously, that's going to pump up his spirit damage in there. Lash can get a light melee fairly easily off of his dive kick there. And then also Pocket, who can get one off of his combo without too much trouble. Don't really have to worry about parry on that. And then Yamato, very good on Yamato, I feel like. It's just she has a lot of competition in her spirit slots, so it's a little harder to pick up for her. All right, and then the heroes that can use this item to at least some small degree probably are going to be Mo and Krill, just because he's up close to the enemies a lot. It's not too hard for him to get a light melee. And then also Warden. So Warden, you can get a melee off in the cage. Now they can parry you inside the cage, so it's a little bit more risky. But he's another hero that can kind of get up close and has a good chance at getting a light melee. And outside of them, I mean, honestly, this item is pretty good on anybody. So if you're going to be in close range, you could totally build this item if you got a slot for it. And the last new item here is going to be Arcane Surge. So Arcane Surge builds out a kinetic dash. So this is the second item that builds across two different item categories. So kinetic dash is a weapon item, and then it builds into the spirit item. It gives 1 stamina, 100 bonus health, 15% movement, slow resist. So that's a unique stat that's really good on this item. It gives you the 12 spirit power for being a 3000 tier soul spirit item. And then the passive on this is your next dash jump does not cost an extra stamina point. And then it's going to buff the next ability you cast for the next 7 seconds with 20% ability range, 20% duration, and 20 spirit power. It also gives you 20% fire rate, 5 temporary ammo. So this item, I'm sure you can imagine, this item is really good across a lot of different heroes, especially heroes that have a big ultimate. So if you have a massive area of effect ultimate, then Arcane Surge is going to be a very good item for your character. All right, the first core user for Arcane Surge, kind of a hot take, but I think it's going to be Abrams. You can see it pumps up the circle on his Siphon Life to just a really huge amount. It's going to increase the damage by quite a bit as well. A much smaller circle without surging first. It's also going to help you lock in a shoulder charge into heavy melee combo, so you don't need duration extender. You can also kind of tack it on to his seismic impact. It's going to pump up the circle on his seismic impact to a pretty good size. And then a hidden benefit there is it's going to move kinetic pulse into his spirit items. So that clears up a weapon slot. Next up is Dynamo, probably the best user of Arcane Surge. It's going to give a lot of range to his kinetic pulse. You can see it doesn't reach without it. And then it's also going to add a lot of range and extra time on his Rejuvenating Aurora. So it gives him a pretty good distance on that. It's a bit smaller there without using it. And then, of course, the Singularity. So if you surge into a Singularity, it's going to just increase the range quite a bit. It ramps it up to 4 ticks instead of 3 on the basic cast. And then next to Dynamo, Mo and Krill might be the second best user of this item. Combos with all his abilities. You can see you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 extra meters on the radius of his burrow, and then also it adds to the time on it. It's also going to pump up his scorn pretty well, so maybe 3 or 4 meters on the scorn. And then of course he just gets really good spirit scaling, so adding 20 spirit is really useful. His sandblast is already comically long range, so when you add 20% to that, it just hits from across the map. And then of course his combo, so when you surge into combo, it's going to add time and it's going to add extra scaling. So you can see he goes 280 damage without surging first, only 155. All right, next up we got Paradox. So you'll see if I Arcane Surge into the Pulse Grenade, it's going to increase the radius by an absolute ton. If you just throw a raw grenade, the radius is much smaller. It's also going to add some distance to her ultimate, and then how long her wall is going to be up. But I really think the biggest benefit for Paradox is it moves Kinetic Dash into a Spirit slot. And then Pocket, of course, it's going to be very good on every ability for Pocket. So it really bumps up the range on his Barrage. It's going to make a bigger cloak. It's going to travel further, and then it's going to last longer. And then also, of course, it's going to make the satchel radius a good bit bigger if you surge into it first. And then his ultimate, without making you sit here through multiple ticks of his ultimate, I did get up an extra 100 damage. So with Surge, it did 582. Without Surge, it only did 480. All right, and then for 7, this ability is going to be really good for ball maxing. So you can see you get a really good sized ball with just Arcane Surge. That's before you add any other items there. Much bigger than your standard size ball. And then it also is going to boost the range of his ultimate. So if I cast my ultimate, you can see it's going to surge past the lamppost there over on the left-hand side of the screen. And then if I cast it again without surging, it barely makes it to the jump pad. So a good bit of distance, a good bit of also duration. And then Viscous, another hero that's going to be good for with ball maxing. So you can see it gives a much bigger puddle punch. And then if I surge into my ultimate, this is with no other items. The ball is really good size. Just with Arcane Surge, you get a really big ball right out of the gate. Versus here, if I cast it normally, you can see regular size ball, obviously much smaller. Also increases the duration there. And then, of course, also it's going to add a little extra duration on the cube, so you get better healing if you surge into a cube first. And then you can see without it, it's a much shorter. And then Warden, so I originally had Warden on this list. I thought Warden was going to be really good for, big ults. But you can see if I cast the ult again, it's going to do the exact same amount of damage and the same distance. So I think this item is actually broken and doesn't work with channel abilities. So next is Yamato. She gets a really big bump on her Crimson Slash. But I think it's bugged with her Power Slash, because you can see it doesn't really give any additional distance there. So I'm not sure if it works with that ability, but it does work with her Shadow Transformation. So you can see if I surge into it, it's going to give me, it looks like 6.5 seconds. And then if I cast the transformation again without surging, this one is only going to go up to 5.2 seconds. So it does work with her transformation. Okay, so now we'll get into the heroes that can use the item pretty well, but maybe not core. The first one's Bebop. So of course it's going to add some range to his hook, which is pretty nice. His hook already is really long range though, so not the biggest benefit. But it does give him a pretty healthy ultimate. So you get a lot of distance and a lot of extra damage on the ultimate because of how good the scaling is. Next up we have Infernus. So you are going to get a pretty good amount of distance on his Flame Dash. You can see if I surge into it, I'm going to go up to the statues there. And then if I surge without Flame Dashing, I just barely kind of get past the shop. It's going to give a little more distance on his Combustion, so you get a little bit more radius there. And then the scaling on that one's good, so you get a nice bit of damage added to that. And then, of course, it's also going to buff his pitch. So if you cast, if you surge into his pitch, you're going to get a good bit of distance on that. It's going to debuff for them, a lot longer there. So pretty good item. Maybe not great, but pretty good for Infernus. So for Ivy, I thought I was going to originally have Ivy in the core section, but I bumped her down to just good. So first of all, it works really well with Kudzu. It gives you a much bigger radius on the Kudzu bomb. So if you're playing a Kudzu build, it's probably worth going for. It's also going to give her a lot of extra range on the stone form, and then it adds duration to the stun, so it helps you lock in a heavy melee. But the problem with Ivy is I don't think this ability works with her ultimate. So you can see if I dust off the ultimate there, it's only going to last for about 4 seconds. And then if I use it with, if I use the ultimate without surging first, it's going to give me the same time. So it also lasts for just the 4 seconds here. So I'm not sure if it works with her. And then finally, we've got Haze. So it's pretty decent on Haze. If you surge into a sleep dagger, it adds a lot of damage because it had the high scaling. And then, of course, a little extra time on how long they're asleep. It's actually really good if you surge into a smoke bomb, because it's going to add, it's crazy, it adds almost a full 6 seconds to the duration of smoke bomb. And then you're in the bomb for so long, like you're stealth for so long, that you actually can reset the cooldown and surge back out when you're ready to attack. And then, of course, her ultimate, it's going to add some damage and some time on the ultimate. And then, of course, the hidden benefit for Haze is it's going to move kinetic dash to a spirit slot, so frees up a weapon slot. All right, so now we're going to look at the heroes that you can build this Arcane Surge on. You can build it. It's just maybe not the best option. So the first one there is Greytown. So fairly useful on Greytown. It does add a bit of radius to his trap. It's going to give him a little more time on his Spirit Owl. Typically the Owl is going to hit before you max out the timer, but it does give you another couple seconds on the Spirit Owl. Mostly you just benefit from the damage on that. But the big benefit for Greytown is going to be his Rain of Arrows. So if you surge into Rain of Arrows, it gives you about a second and a half of extra hang time in the air. So if you're trying to build, around staying in the air, building duration extender, stuff like that, then Arcane Surge is going to help you max that out. Next up, we got Kelvin. Pretty good, honestly, for all of Kelvin's abilities. The only issue with Kelvin, it's like his spirit slots are very contested. So it's kind of hard to fit into his build. But it does, give him a bigger grenade. It's going to last longer on the ice path and the ice beam. It's really better for the ice path. It's going to give you about an extra second and a half on the ice path. And then it's going to add about an extra second to the ice dome. So when you ult on somebody, it does give you a little more time in the ice dome there. Lady Geist is next. Same kind of deal as Kelvin. It makes her grenade bigger. It adds some extra ticks to it because it's going to last longer. She's going to get a little extra damage and range on her lifesteal. But more importantly, I think for Lady Geist, it's best for her ultimate, because a lot of times you'll find yourself kind of dash jumping towards somebody, trying to hit him with the ultimate because it's such short range. So it does add, about, maybe 2 meters to the distance that she's going to be able to cast her ultimate on somebody. All right, next we got McGinnis. Honestly, it's pretty good on McGinnis all around. It's just for McGinnis, I feel like it's kind of awkward to dash jump when you're trying to use your abilities. So it does increase the radius and the time on her heal. It's just like usually when you're throwing the heal down, you're not in a position where you're going to dash jump unless you're trying to go towards somebody to kind of save them. It also is going to add some time and distance to the wall. Those are probably the best 2 uses for McGinnis. It does increase the range on her ultimate. Also useful. It's just, same deal. Kind of dash jumping is a little bit awkward when you're ready to cast the ultimate for her. And then the last one to look at here is going to be Shiv. So useful on Shiv. Same problem with Shiv, I feel like, is that he's got contested spirit slots, so it's kind of hard to fit into his build. But similar to Lady Geist, it helps him get his ultimate off. And you do find yourself kind of dash jumping towards people trying to cast Shiv's ultimate there. So if you do that, it's going to add an extra couple meters to the cast range there. So pretty useful. It's going to also, increase how long his daggers are up. So it adds a couple extra ticks to the dagger. And then it gives you a little bit extra distance on slice and dice, but it's only about 1.5 meters. So it's not, big enough to really make a dent. Okay, so those are all the heroes that I feel like are, it's useful, but, just maybe not the best item. So you can try to fit into the build. You can experiment with it, see if you like the way it works. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up and like it. If you learned something today, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. My channel is still pretty new, so any kind of support you can give me, it really goes a long way. I super appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great holiday coming up, and thanks for watching.